All right, so we will start our first roundtable of the day. Si vous êtes francophone, vous pouvez demander un casque audio pour entendre la traduction simultanée des échanges en français. We are still waiting for one of our speakers, and I heard that there are some transportation issues, so hopefully she will be able to join us in a few minutes. So the roundtable title is Reduce Water and Carbon Footprints of the Fashion Industry, réduire l'empreinte eau et carbone de l'industrie de la mode. And I am very pleased to welcome our speaker. Maybe you can introduce yourself, Héloïse.
Hi everyone, I'm Héloïse Weibrach. I'm a sustainable fashion consultant, and I've been working on this topic for the last decade. And 10 years ago, I was focusing on recycling the office paper at Galeries Lafayette. So I'm very lucky to witness all the efforts that have been made in the past decade. On a day-to-day basis, I'm basically extra project manager for a luxury fashion brand, helping them to accelerate their transformation.
Thank you very much, Casey.
Hi everyone, my name is Cassie. I'm the director of CQ Studio. We're a regenerative textile lab focusing on the R&D of new materials. As well as that, I'm also a PhD candidate at Central St Martin's, sponsored by Monsoon, looking at regenerative textile systems, specifically focusing on regenerating wastewater produced in the flax industries. My work really focuses on looking at new ways that we can integrate regenerative systems to help reduce carbon and water impacts.
Thank you so much. Mary?
Yes, so I'm Mary Samba. I'm head of product and customer experience at Vayu. At Vayu, our mission is to help brands, retailers, manufacturers to measure but also reduce their environmental footprint. So we have a software that leverages AI, machine learning, and crunches a lot of data to make that job easier and also to make it at scale. So we calculate the footprint and environmental impact of operations and products and do all that on our software to help our brands and manufacturers.
Thank you so much. Monica?
So my name is Monica. I'm co-founder and CEO of Recobo. Recobo is a company that has a very clear purpose. We want to fight textile waste. So we have come up with a solution. It is a software, and we help companies allocate these leftover materials, the dead stock fabrics that are generated after a garment collection run. We help them allocate them in new projects, resell them, or recycle them. So we have like many different services. It is a circularity platform. We also, for example, help with garment repairs. So we're basically focused on the material side, reuse and resell and recycle, and the garment side, repairs. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jesse?
Yes. Hello, everyone. My name is Jesse Dolstra, co-founder and director of BeAware Score. And at BeAware Score, we focus on streamlining life cycle assessments for the textile industry. Being a quite complex process, we try to make it more accessible, user-friendly, and of course also scalable, whether it's a brand, a retailer, a manufacturer, or also procuring organizations like local governments. Yeah, that was a small intro.
Thank you so much. So reducing the fashion industry, water and carbon footprints, you are all working on it with different approaches. And my first question for you is, what can be said today about the concrete impact of the fashion industry on water reserves, ecosystem, and on the environment in general? Who would like to start?
I think we're complete now. Look.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, amazing. Just on time. You can sit there. And yeah, if Monica wants to share a micro, maybe you can introduce yourself, Cléa.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm so sorry for my late. My name is Cléa Pollard, and I am a consultant and entrepreneur in the fashion industry since 10 years already. And I have a focus on CSR. I have created a non-profit organization where we work on topic of revalorization and relocalization of raw material and finishing products. And as a consultant, I work on transformation, managing and implementation of production. For example, I'm currently implementing a manufacturer in Cotonou, Benin, where I will develop like a whole local filière over there. And voila.
Thank you. It's already a lot.
Yeah.
I will repeat my question for you. So what can be said today about the concrete impacts of the fashion industry on water reserves, ecosystem, and on the environment in general? And yeah, Eloise?
I will go first. During my introduction, I said that I was very impressed about the efforts that have been made in the past 10 years. But to be frank, I'm also very frightened about the acceleration in the growth of our fiber production and fiber use. Because I don't know if you know, you probably do, but every year Textile Exchange is releasing a report, the Material Matrix Report, with all the quantity of fiber we have produced in the past year. And in this report, we can see there is an increase by 7% every year, and there is also an increase in synthetic fiber. Like the polyester itself is representing 52% of our whole industry. So we know about the impact. We know about the impact on our ecosystem, but we also accelerate a lot our fiber use, which is quite frightening.
Yeah, sure. Anyone else on this first question? Just to remind the concrete impacts.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And if you see the rise of polyester, of course, it's definitely worrying. On the other hand, we also see that, let's say, the consumption of textiles is decreasing. So at the same time, there's a certain leverage, I think, being applied to consumption, but also, of course, the increase of resale platforms, which is also, I think, helping to use less resources. But I think it's more important to look at what type of resources are being used and how are they used. And especially if we're talking about renewable energy, for example, then yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer to really focus on these types of investments in the global textile industry to really push to be more resource efficient. Yep.
Yeah, I think as well, even though there is a rise in synthetics, I mean, natural fibers still have a huge environmental impact, and especially with the production of a garment, so much of that impact, up to 80%, occurs before you even actually produce and make that garment. Actually choosing the materials carefully and the processes to dye your fabrics, to treat the fabrics, coatings, finishes, that's really crucial. And I think that's where you can really see the biggest impact in reduction of the environmental footprint of a garment at the end of life. And I think, yeah, it's quite a fine line to walk, really trying to consider what materials to choose because of also considering the application. If it is something that needs long wearing, if you are using something that is not going to sort of stand the test of time and then it then ends up in landfill or having to be recycled again, that will have a negative impact. So there's a lot of considerations to happen before you even think about the production of the garment, and really choosing the material choices carefully is crucial.
I would like to add, I totally agree. I think making a smart material choice is something that then will impact a lot, high impact or less impact. But also, I was just the other day sitting with a client, a big company, and we were discussing about that the 30% of the materials they purchase, they end up as a waste. This is something that is actually having a lot of impact because these companies purchase many materials to create garments. And it is a big number. 30% of these materials end up as waste. Also, we were talking about that the systems have a default consumption per garment that is not being reviewed like regularly. So you take the one you're using historic from previous years, and this increases the amount of materials that end up as waste. So I think a combination of a correct prediction of the material you're going to use, the quantities, like a very accurate quantity of material you need, hand in hand with the right choice of material you're going to use. And these are mainly decisions that you make at the beginning of the process, but have a very high impact in the end. So it's something that it could be done.
Yeah, I think maybe just to add, 80% of the environmental footprint of a textile product eventually is being decided on during the design phase. So exactly as you say, reducing waste and really focusing on what's needed, taking the full life cycle of a product into account is, I think, what should be focused on a lot more.
Yeah, with this question, I just wanted to set up the big pictures, and because we are surrounded by data, but we don't automatically know which of them are really relevant. Is there any source of information for the global impact that you recommend?
Well, I think it's I think it's very difficult question. In our experience, there's let's say by far not enough data to say something on averages or benchmarking or whatever. So I think to prioritize and to collectively focus on the collection of primary data from suppliers should be an absolutely key point. And of course, there's databases such as EcoInvent, but to our opinion, they're not very complete, missing a lot of data. And the same goes for LCAs on materials, and we can go on and on. So it's very early stage, I would say, but I think to really focus on engaging with suppliers and making sure that they know what is expected from them when it comes to data collection, but also how to process that data is, I think definitely a good point. But coming back to your question, it's difficult to answer, but maybe someone else has an opinion.
Yeah, I mean, fully agree with Jesse. We're fully aligned and working on similar tools, and here we see also not only a lack of data but also a lack of common methodology. So there's really this this momentum right now to get together and agree on how do we measure things, so we're comparing things in a fair way and using the same databases, approaches, methodology and techniques as well to have a fair benchmark and comparison across products. And we see a lot of that happening on the regulation side. So we also see the PEF scores coming to help everyone align behind that. Of course, it has a lot of improvement still in terms of granularity of the data, capturing everything, but it can really help everyone collect better data and be able to compare results. And not only just see a 10 kilo difference between two products or materials and not knowing where it's coming from. So hopefully it's getting there. It's not there yet, but I guess collaboration is key here as well between brands, regulatory entities as well, and any other actors in the industries.
Thank you. So to continue on this, what are the key markers to be taken into account by manufacturers and brands wishing to study and reduce the pollution generated by their activity? I guess you have an idea on it, yes?
Yeah, I can talk a lot about it, but I think first of all, for a lot of brands and manufacturers, it's important to understand themselves. What are we really measuring? What do we want to achieve while measuring this? And what can we do with it? And I think here, one of the main elephants in the room is also the knowledge on this topic. It's the knowledge of data, it's the knowledge of LCA, having the textile expertise to also substantiate data and know what to do with it, so to take concrete actions. Because data without actions to me is useless, to be frankly speaking. So I think addressing the knowledge gap is one of the main things that we also try to achieve with Be Aware, and making the LCA tools more accessible, easy to use, understandable, and also explain why we're doing it, how we're doing it, and try to educate, let's say, whether it's a manufacturer, a brand, or any stakeholder in the textile industry, to get more acquainted with what we're discussing here. Yeah.
Also, I think this question is bringing another question, is who actually holds the power between manufacturers and brands? Obviously, manufacturers are a key player, but brands, I think, are the one holding the powers because they have all the financial means. And I think they should take also more responsibilities in the trade and fiscal and legislations, policies that we can create and that we have to bring. They should support more lobbying, they should engage more in governments, and they should also investing in innovation and sustainable new way to manufacture, because they are the one who is actually making the order, and they are the one on the beginning of all the supply chains.
And even at brand level, I think it should not stay in the sustainability or in the innovation team. Everybody should be consulted, compliance, purchase, finance, And to date, it's still like there is a little silo on that. So I think there is a need of collaboration and to decide who is doing what, even at brand level, not even at the brand versus manufacturer.
Just to add to that, I think when we talk about collaboration, that also includes the workers. I worked on a project a few years ago, and one big highlight that we found was they were using cover crops on their fields, but actually the workers were very resistant to that because it meant that they had to exert more energy, and so it was a lot harder work for the same job and for the same pay. And so that really needs, the social impacts need to come into consideration as well when you're trying to, put into place some actions that can reduce carbon impacts, but ultimately there is someone that pays that price. And so the consideration of actually speaking together with workers, brands, manufacturers, everyone, so the discussion as to what those impacts are and who sort of bears that actually is considered.
Thank you. So my third question is, apart from the emergence of legislation aimed at reducing the ecological footprints of companies, what measures do you think are essential? You already have mentioned it, but beside that, what can we do?
So I think we need obviously to create a new process and to reinvent our industry. And I'm begging a lot on upcycling, because for me upcycling is not only something that is about a new way to produce, and it's not only about material. It's also it's a philosophical shift that we need to apply in fashion industry, obviously, but also in art, in technique, and in our global identity, because designers need to see the textile waste, or the waste generally speaking, as the primary raw material, because we need to understand as a humanity that the circularity and the regenerative is the only way to see things. Everything that is around us is dying, the planet is dying, but it's also an opportunity to see that, to imagine how we can create life from that. And also the technical challenge is the machines, the robots, the new technologies are always what is creating a future. And we can see that the linear standard for this mass production line in the past, in the 18th century, is create a present. So we need to ask ourselves, what do we want the AI and the new technology to design for our future? And this is why upcycling is, for me, we should invest everything on that, because that's how we are going to be able to change a paradigm. And I would like to give like a quick case study, may I say. I believe so much in upcycling that with the RRFT, or my non-profit organization, we decided since September to open shops that are really dedicated to upcycling. So we offer to designers, professional or amateur designers, second-hand garments, dead stock fabric, dead stock mercery, sewing material, of course second-hand also, everything to make upcycling possible.
Very concrete. Anyone else?
Yes, maybe to add on that point, I think we discussed already about the orders of materials and how early on all those decisions, like the important decisions, are happening. And I think what's reported now was decided 2 or 3 years ago. So now putting back data in the heart of the decisions, and environmental data as well. So we always consider costs or availability of like materials, fibers, textiles, but now also adding this environmental data from the beginning. So we also work with our customers and their product designers to see not only is it better to switch to a recycled alternative or another alternative, but which one and what's the difference. And of course, cost will play a role, but even just deciding between two innovative materials, like is it actually reducing the footprint or is it just a feeling that we have about it? So putting those tools and this data like in the hands of designers, manufacturers to like really see the impact of different materials and processes, will have an impact down the line while we're still processing the impact of the past few years.
I just want to add as well, because I really do believe in upcycling. Of course, I'm going to come from the perspective of regeneratively grown crops. I think the main point is we need a lot of different solutions. I don't think one thing is going to fix it all. And I think there needs to be options, because realistically, we are going to still keep growing crops. That is the reality. But how can we do that with the least impact or with a positive impact, if anything? But we really need to give a variety of different options so that there can be choice. And I think that there is upcycling, dead stock materials, regenerative processes, but the real focus is that we do have the options that are actually available for designers to use, and that can be a real struggle, because a lot of times things aren't used available in the large quantities that a lot of brands want. I'm really educating that you don't need that one material for everything that you have in your collection, and that there can be that choice, divided between products and how they can be best suited. But yeah, I just don't think that there's that one catch-all. I mean, that's how we got ourselves into this mess, is monoculture and that focus on this one hero crop, and then that's all that we use. So really coming together and sharing all the options that are available, and being able to give the right choice for the right products.
I completely agree with you. Obviously, the reality is that not the whole world is going to upcycle. But this is why I was talking about something more philosophical, is as designers, as artists, we need to create a new utopies. We need to change the collective imagination. And in order to do that, I think it's important to be radical. And that's why I'm talking about, like, okay, that's our goal, and let's go there,
100%.
Sorry, if I agree with you, but if I go into the hall and I tell them this, you get a lot of resistance. So I fully agree with you, like on a philosophical level, that say we have to be radical. If we really want change, then we should change, right? And we should push for change. But I think it's sometimes very difficult to match that with reality, with a lot of companies that I'm speaking with, saying, well, we want to be circular, but we're having shareholders which are pushing us, we're having certain targets. And it's kind of the chicken and egg, right? So they don't really have an incentive for it, well, aside from the financial one, which is a very wrong one, in my opinion. But I think this is a really interesting question. So how can legislation, I think, really enforce these type of changes? Because I think this is really the key to kind of be really radical and go for a new route, which I think we drastically need. Yeah.
I definitely agree that we need legislation. I mean, that can't be denied. But I do also think that there is this call for, it's a branding issue. I think that sustainability is not seen as cool, like it really isn't. And I think it really, you can force through the actual, concrete change by changing the perspective of what sustainability is, what upcycling is, what using regenerative crops can be. I think that's the big issue, is brands, luxury houses, they don't see it as something that's cool. They see it as something that's kitschy and maybe, a little capsule collection. And so that really is where the collaboration across different industries, not just the brands and manufacturers, but the marketers, the people who can actually communicate what this, what this new world will look like, what this radical change will be. And I think that's the only way we get there, is when everyone comes together to actually see what the vision can be and how we can communicate that effectively.
And if we admit that we need regulation, it means that we are breaking with certain set of mind, just the one which is currently, the majority of the economy in the US. So it means that if we admit that we need the regulation, it means that we are definitely no more into certain economical mindset. So it's a long journey to bring the industry in this direction. And this morning, during our keynote, Anne-Laure Linger was reminding that less than 1% of global fiber market came from pre- or post-consumer recycled textile. Just after we have a panel on it, so I don't want to spend too much time. I know you have a lot of things to share with us, but I think this figure is really the illustration of what you just said, Jessie, about the reality of the market.
Yeah, but there is a financial case for the textile recycling, because I know that there is less than 1% that is actually recycled on closed loop, but there is a lot of studies that are estimating that, for instance, in Europe only, it's a market opportunity of 3.5 million euro on the textile to textile recycling scene. So I believe we should take this in account, because if we go in the big hall and speak about that, we will get not a lot of pushback, but a lot of convinced people that are interested about that. Security is very complex topic, and there is a place for all type of approach, from the most radical one with a change of philosophy to the most concrete and financial one, taking in account this type of...
It's also true because the country, the producing country are also the ones the most impacted by the result of the whole things. So you have totally anticipated on my next question, which was, are there any processes or models that encourage the reduction, rather than the relocation of impacts that you find particularly effective and interesting, beside the one you have already mentioned, Clea and you, Cassie?
Yeah, maybe, I'm a big fan of the 10R strategy, which always starts with refuse. So how can we consume less? How can we have less impact? Which of course is to consume less. So I very much believe in this strategy to really look at each step of the R ladder and see how that can be aligned within a certain strategy of a company.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to go the more locally possible, because it's not necessary to have a big budget to be local, and it's not necessary to have a big budget to be transparent. That's why when I work with young designers with a small budget, that's the discourse I'm always telling them, to be the more local you are, the more transparent, the more you go on short rate, the more you can assure yourself and your consumers that you will be the more sustainable possible.
I fully agree. It's about small steps at the end of the day, right? So it doesn't have to be huge, as long as you're transparent and aware and conscious about, the small steps that you're making. And it's also what we're always telling to companies that we're talking with, who see this huge mountain of work and of cost in front of them when they want to do LCAs, for example. And we also tell them, well, it's really about progress over perfection, the open door we were talking about. And really apply that, be transparent about what you do know, but also what you don't know, and take it from there step by step to work towards an end goal, of course.
Exactly, and also I think it's that the data doesn't have to be perfect. There's already a lot of data all around, and we need to focus on what actually moves the needle rather than trying to cover everything, have everything sorted. So really getting away from perfection, being aware we're on that journey, being creative about solutions as well, thinking outside of the box, because clearly how we were thinking about things are not just working anymore. And really baby steps, and that everyone is involved at every level to contribute in small parts to make it add up and bring some changes.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I wanted to insist on processes and models, it's also because I think the industry needs for optimistic case studies. I'm looking at you, Clea, because I know you have for a long time worked for brands trying to propose a local production. And people from the production side, they often see the negative impact of jumping into sustainable approaches, but they rarely think about the positive impact they could have on their business trying to make efforts to be more sustainable. So this is why I think this question of models was important.
Yeah, completely. And this is also why I think it's about believing in something, because you were giving example of two numbers. One is encouraging, the other one is discouraging. And that's the whole thing about statistics. And we can see that what is happening in politics. You can, with numbers, you can say whatever you want to say. So also for me, it's my point of view, but I think it's complicated to make a move with a big boat, like huge brands. And I don't want to bet on that. I think it's preferable to bet on small speedboats, new brands, new designers, new startups, because they are the ones who are going to shape the future. That's the process to invest on.
Yeah, and if we look concretely, what all of you are doing is pretty crazy what one individual can do. Like, it's huge. it's really crazy when we think about it. So it's also encouraging a lot.
Yeah, completely. And we are not going to be there like in 100 years, so we don't know. But we are here now, and I think it's also about how we want to spend our day. You know, I'm not sure I want to spend my day to convince someone that is already spending billions in pollution. You know.
Okay, so anything else you wanted to?
No, I just have maybe a small illustration of a concrete project I'm investigating about changing the model, is like the hydroponic culture. I'm not like 100% convinced yet about like the sustainability case and even the economical case of this type of culture, but it's a great way to approach the fact that there will be food competition in the coming years, there will be fiber competition, and this is a way to produce by managing climate change. So yeah, that's more food for thought, but that's an interesting production model as well.
Thank you for the idea. So maybe I can ask my last question, which is, are there some type of discourse or communication strategies that you find either necessary or, on the contrary, harmful to encourage fashion customers to rethink the way they dress?
I mean, I think for sure we see that shaming and using guilt is not the most efficient way. I think there's a lot of education to happen. I myself didn't come from a fashion background and had to learn so much in our community just to understand what's actually the supply chain. It's the super complex supply chain. You don't always know actually where every fiber is coming from. So there's a lot that consumers can learn, and also knowing what's actually under their control, where they can actually make the better decisions, what they can do then even in terms of use phase and end of life, just to like fully make sure they mitigate this impact. But mainly just having like more and more knowledge to know which brands to go to or which type of material to pick their garments from, and taking into account also like how to change their habits in terms of keeping some garments longer but that have better quality so they'll be more durable as well. So getting to understand what plays a role there and what they can do about it seems like more positive reinforcement approach than the guilting that we sometimes see.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, there is like four kind of way to communicate. You were talking about empowering and not guilt. You were also talking about the normalization. Sustainable fashion should not be a niche or an alternative. It should be a standard. You were also talking about the global discourse that each actors in the industry, from content creator to influencers to brands to manufacturers, should align. And also, I think the last one for me will be the engagement. Sustainable fashion industry is something that we need to feel and to see. It's not only about clicking on a button and buying something. It's something that it's an experience that you want to live. Coming from these four kind way to communicate, with the non-profit organization, we decided we create a project. So in France, 17% of the places in malls are empty because of the new way of consumption, which is going digital, but also because of all the liquidations. So we offer to those malls to occupy those places with action of awareness and awareness to raising awareness to sustainable fashion. And we open on those places sewing workshops to share with the people who is making the clothes. We opened certain garments of second hand to create social interactions. We opened the shops I was talking about, like the dead stock and the second-hand garment shops, to show them also that it's possible to have good quality with second hands, because it's still an old belief that it's a little bit dirty and so on, which is not. And we also create like fashion actions to make the people engage in this new industry that we all create together. And this is coming from malls. we are not talking often about balls, I think, but it's coming from them because they have created a CSR politics inside the companies.
I think as well, really communicating the work that goes into making garments and textiles. I think everything is handmade in fashion. You know, your garment is handmade by a person. And if you really understand, if you show the consumer what is involved in making that garment, making that textile, dyeing that fabric, growing that fibre, you will have more appreciation and want and the desire for sustainability.
That's for sure. And when I look at you, I think you are all very stylish and well dressed. And we are talking about sustainability. And a few years ago, a lot of people were telling, yes, but you know, sustainability is not fashion at all. And I don't know what the stylists in the audience think about it, but I think we have here a good example of visual communication, which is trying to show that it's possible to be both fashion, stylish, and sustainable. I mean, I don't know if you are sustainably dressed, but I guess you are. Yes, Monica, sorry. No.
I wanted to add that it's something that normally is not spoken a lot about it, emotional durability of garments. I think companies have a responsibility. At the same time, they are producing new collections. It's something very relevant to boost the emotional durability of the garment and get back to all campaigns, talk about the previous garments they have launched in order for their customers to be willing to repair that garment so that garment lasts longer, to be willing to maybe take care of that garment and maybe resell it to other individual that wants to use it, or also talk about the taking good care of these garments to extend the life of these pieces. For me, I think it's something relevant, and some companies are starting to talk about this. You go to their websites, and in their homepage, you can see repair, resell, donations, and I think these companies are giving like a very big message and encouraging and empowering their customers to have options, not to just have that garment sitting around in their wardrobe and doing nothing.
Thank you for this remark. So we still have time for one conclusion. If you want to say one last or two last sentences to conclude this panel, maybe we can start by you and one after another.
Yeah, I think when it really comes to the environmental footprint of the industry, it's really important to understand what are we talking about in the supply chain, and also understand the complexity of the supply chain, from spinning, weaving, knitting, dyeing, finishing, all of these different steps which are quite complex, and how can we really understand them and really also connect that with the actual data that we see coming from those suppliers. Right now, I was talking with Marie as well, we're using a lot of secondary data, which is not always a good representation of what is actually happening in the supply chain. But yeah, collectively, I think we have to understand how are we getting better data, how can we align on methodologies, how can we align on terminologies, because often we're also using different words for the same things, and really streamline that and come together and view it more as a collective exercise, because I still think textile industry is a lot of times little islands. And I think it's time to really connect those dots. Yeah.
Thank you. Monica. Oh, I'm good. Nothing else.
I would like to emphasize what nature is about while quoting Lavoisier when he say, nothing is lost, everything is transformed. And it brings me at what you just said. We need to be collective, and we need to create bridges across industries in order to change our humanity.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think really like focusing on those small changes. Of course, there will be bigger ones to come, but every single small change counts, and really just leveraging curiosity as well, because there's just so many actors in the industry, and just understanding why those decisions are made, how, and seeing like how everyone can bring their expertise to like really go towards the right direction. I guess, yeah, curiosity is key here as well.
Just to kind of emphasize, I think collaboration is key, and also to take inspiration from nature and view waste as a resource, be able to transform that into something new.
And totally agree on the curiosity is key. We are at the beginning of our learning journey, so strategies, it's great, it's important, but we need to do things on the field, to do a trials and error, and it's okay, we will progress. Like action over perfection is really the key word for me.
Yeah, if I might add to that, I fully agree, and I think it's really about getting started, right? So I don't know how many people are listening and who actually made LCAs or done this type of calculation, but it really starts with understanding, having an understanding, and that understanding most of the times is not always complete. But it's getting that first step, making that first step, and then iterating, and as you exactly say, it's progress over perfection, and I think that's the mentality that we should have when we want to reduce the environmental footprint of the industry. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I guess you have questions in the audience for our speakers. Don't be shy.
Hello. So you talk about sustainability to educate people. I guess my question is, can sustainability be a standard and can it be cheap? Because we are in our fashion bubble, but there are also people who fight to eat, to have a roof under their head, and maybe this is not their their primary need. So for them, it's not a pleasure to buy clothes at Kiabi or Primark. So do you think it can be a standard and be, I guess, cheaper?
I think definitely. I mean, there's options, and that's why I really wanted to emphasize that we need the variety of choices. Things like secondhand, and giving those options, and actually, repairing secondhand, teaching those skills so that you can have something that is cheaper but still sustainable. But even when it comes to maybe if you want something that's a new product but sustainably made, that comes with scale, and that has to take investment from brands in order to scale that infrastructure. So I think it can get there. It will take a bit of time, but in the meantime, that's why I really think there's the emphasis and the need for the variety of solutions, so that there can be other options for people that maybe economically can't afford the sustainably grown fibre as it is now. But that comes with time. Polyester is so cheap because of the infrastructure of scale, and it's a waste product. So I think that it can get there, but it just takes the investment from the big players.
Yeah, and also it's so important to say that this example of like a mom family with a lot of kids buying from Kiabi, if we had someone to guilt, it will be Kiabi, obviously. And because that's our job as startups, CEOs, brands, manufacturers, to give choices, to create choices. And so this is why, for example, I open like the 2 shops for secondhand, and I'm opening 4 of them in the next 6 months, because it's our job to give those people who doesn't have a lot of options, to give them choices.
And I think beyond the economical challenges, it's also just the mental charge of like, you need to find something sustainable, so you need to educate yourself, you need to do research, you need to like also be fully like passionate about like fashion, which is not everyone's case. So I think it's also like our role to make things easier, and if like the regulations and the brands align to make sustainability as a standard, as we discussed, then it will also make it easier for consumers to take the right decisions, because they'll have like less clutter and less option, and will directly see what is better or what are the better choices as well.
So true. Very good question. Anyone else? Any other question? No one?
We were very clear.
Yes, you were, indeed. So anyway, you can continue the conversation with our speaker, and we meet in 1 hour for the next panel conversation about recycled material. Thank you so much for being here and for listening us, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.